All right, now you have to sit and be good. Okay. $10.28. Good morning. We'll go ahead and get started, even if we're a couple minutes early. We're going to leave the door open until somebody out there closes it. And I have to eat the mic. Okay. Let me get started on that. Whoop, wait a minute here. I have an impediment. I don't want to trip over. All right, how's that? There's one, there are a couple down here. How's that? All right, good to go. Our speaker this morning is a team leader, an inspiration, and a friend to us all. Ben Burks was named Brandon Oaks Executive Director in September 2017, following years of service in various positions at several similar facilities, including the Glebe and Virginia Mennonite retirement communities. Ben's extensive education, get ready for this, includes a doctorate in educational leadership, policy, and foundations from the University of Virginia, a Master of Theology from Duke University, a Master of Divinity from Duke Divinity School, and a BA in Mathematics from UVA. He currently serves on the board of directors for Leading Age, a statewide association of nonprofit providers of services for the aging. In October 2022, Ben was named Chief Operating Officer of VLH, Inc. He has oversight of operations for Luther Crest, our HUD housing facility in Newmarket, Virginia, as well as leading the corporate team which operates across the street in the Brandon Point office building. And I also have to share a fun fact learned recently. Ben accomplishes all of this without the benefit of coffee. Ben, we thank you for taking time to be with us this morning.
Thank you, Rendy. Can you all hear okay in the back? Okay, great. As I start, I want to thank Nicole Brook, our marketing director, who helped me with the presentation. I want to thank Rendy for getting some documents together and showing me where a bunch of documents are in the game room library. There's a whole host of documents in there as well. So as we go through, I think you'll see, you may learn some things you didn't know, but there's probably some things you know that I don't. So if you can help me fill in some gaps and some holes, I would be grateful as we go. So to start, this is a picture of Brandon Atwell. It was actually Lee Highway at the time. You're standing, if you were from where this picture was taken, you would be standing over across the street, maybe behind the corporate building or at where the NRC is. This is the old Zion Church they talk about. Larry Kuhn, I saw Larry came in here, didn't he? What year is that car right there? It's probably hard to see, but I don't know when this was taken, but it must have been in the 50s, maybe early 60s. And this is where Brandon Oaks now resides, right here on this area. I just thought that was kind of a cool shot and wanted to share with you. So this site was very important to Lutherans because this church right here dates back to 1735. They found berry juice written, or a date written in berry juice on the inside of it, 1735. The Moravians worshipped here, and then the Lutherans worshipped there as well. Congregation of Lutherans started at this site, and in 1826, the church was dedicated. In 1839, Dr. David Biddle, where's Barbara Ogen? Is she here today? Barbara. Dr. Biddle, who was the founder of Roanoke College, was ordained right here on this site in 1839. And then later on, that congregation moved. In 1897, it moved. Ultimately, it merged with College Lutheran in Salem. But the church stood, and it stood there until 1971 when it caught fire. Anybody in here ever see that on fire? Or anybody in here living in Roanoke at that time? Okay. All right, well, it caught on fire in 1971. It remained there. It had a lot of vandalism and was ultimately removed in 1976. So that's the history of where we are. So in the beginning, there were a group of Lutherans that got together, and they created a not-for-profit organization. It was called the Virginia Synod Lutheran Homes, VSLH. And it ultimately became VLH, Virginia Lutheran Homes. That group got together in 1966, formed, wrote articles of incorporation, became a legal entity in 1966, and their design was to provide housing for elderly folks, for the elderly in the territory of the Virginia Synod. And they were looking for a place to build and have house something, and they purchased this spot that you just saw. They purchased 19 acres right there for $114,000, and $114,500 is what they purchased it for. And the church was thrown in gratis, so they threw the church in gratis, which was good. Now, one of the interesting things is that Colonel Sinclair Brown, very famous politician, very much known in the area. He owned that farm, and he's the grandfather of the Elliots. And you all know that our immediate neighbors are the Elliots. That farm has stayed in their family and continues to be in their family now. So Lucy Elliott lives there, and we've had some of the family that have actually lived here in Brandon Oaks over that time. So that was 1966 when they formed. They started looking to buy it. I think they bought it and broke ground in 1971. And they started, and they decided they were going to build a nursing home. And so they're looking to build a nursing home. And the original nursing home that was built, and it opened in 1973, was where Dogwood and Assisted Living now stand. So that was the very first property. And that's why when we talk about Brandon Oaks having its 30-year anniversary, the Nursing and Rehab Center is having its 50th year. Because in 1973, that building opened right there, right here where Assisted Living and Dogwood are. One of the things about this building, I don't know if you can see any of these or not. This is some of the construction going on. It was a 62-bed facility. So our license at the time at 62 is what we still have. We carried it when we moved across the street. So 62-bed facility. It opened in April of 1973. The cost to build this was $750,000. That's pretty cheap, isn't it, Sam? By today's numbers anyway. Lineberger constructed it, which you will hear that they've pretty much had their hands in pretty much all of what we've done. One of the interesting things was that this was an effort by so many volunteers in the churches. They came together, they raised money, they did all sorts of different things. I believe there was a balloon when there were balloons and all not little balloons, but big hot air balloons. All kinds of big things going on. They raised a lot of money, and they committed not only to raise money to get it out of the ground, but they committed to continue to support it throughout the time. And so when the building opened, very shortly after they opened, those volunteers stayed together, and that became the auxiliary. So Betty's in the back, 50-year anniversary for the auxiliary now too. Not a coincidence because of the amount of volunteer effort that went into this. It was truly a labor of love. Now, one of the interesting things to me is that the private room rate back in 1973 when we opened was $29 a day. Semi-private room rate was $26 a day. Today, this is not your life care cost. This is if you're coming in from outside. Private room rate is $330 a day. Semi-private is $292. Big difference in those 50 years. One of the things I'll note, as I said, that the church burned in 71 and that it was ultimately removed in 1976. When they removed it, they took somebody, and I'm not sure who, but somebody took the original pieces of that and they made that replica that stands out here from the original barn, or from the original church. And the wood is original to that, and it's a 1/6 replica. And it stood very close to the nursing home at that time. So when it was built, that was put back, and that was the main part of the heritage there, which I thought was kind of interesting. So that's 1973 when we opened. The plan was for Virginia Lutheran Homes to open an affordable housing complex right on this same site. But when they started to do that in Roanoke, folks pitched a fit. Local residents, they said within a 10-mile radius, there wasn't a single person that was supportive of having a HUD 202 housing here on this site in 1977. And ultimately, the city council killed it and said, no, we're not going to approve that. So the Virginia Lutheran Homes Board, they had received a contract from HUD to own and operate a HUD facility, and it was supposed to be here in Roanoke. But when the city council killed it, they started looking for, well, where else in the Virginia Senate territory can we put it? And there was a fellow down in Virginia Beach, a contractor that had some land, and he wanted to develop it. And he donated that land to the church, and the church decided that it would develop it. And so what happened is Luther Manor, this one right here, began to be built in 1982. Actually, it was opened in 1982. And we had 123 affordable housing apartments in Luther Manor. And again, that opened in 1982. That, again, was supposed to be on this site, and the community of Roanoke said, no, you're not doing that. So that was 1982. As we continue in the 1980s, another pastor in Newmarket, he had about 30 acres of land, and he donated that to the church. And so the church built another affordable housing at Luther Crest in Newmarket on 30 acres, beautiful land, small 40-apartment complex there in Newmarket. And so the board is fulfilling its mission from the 1960s to provide services and housing to the aging population within the territory. They had expanded by, that was 88 when Luther Crest opened, 82 when Luther Manor opened, and so they're beginning to expand. In 1991, this was something that I learned when I did this. Virginia Lutheran Homes purchased Laurel Meadows Home. It's a nursing home in Laurel Fork, Virginia, covering the counties of Carroll County, Floyd County, and Patrick County. And it was a 60-bed nursing home. So in 1991, Virginia Lutheran Homes had 2 nursing homes, one 62-bed, which was on this site, 60-bed at Laurel Fork, and 2 affordable housing, Luther Manor and Luther Crest, 123 beds and 40 beds. So that's where they are at the end of the 90s, or end of the 80s. Oops. So then, in 1987, the chair of the board, some of you may know John Edwards, he was the chair of Virginia Lutheran Homes. They came back to this site and said, okay, if we can't put an affordable housing on it, let's put a retirement community on it, a full-fledged retirement community that connects the nursing, independent living all the way through to nursing. Let's put that on that site. And so they created a board, another board, a management board, and they said, all right, you all go and y'all figure out the cost, the construction, the zoning, the permits, the programming, everything, all the nuts and bolts, the VLH board assigned to this other board. And there are some folks in this room that were originally on that board. Sam Lineberger was the president. Dick Wirtz was the treasurer of that board. Let's see, Catherine Buchanan, who recently passed, was on that board. Sig Davidson was on that board. Is Paul White in here? Paul, did you make it in here? Paul raised his hand. Paul was on that board. And Mary Dress's husband, Mary recently passed as well. We're all on this board. And there's a host of them. The amount of work that went into planning, building, opening this community fell on the shoulders of that board. And when you come into Brandon Oaks now, this plaque right here is the first thing on the right when you come in, this plaque. And it's very fitting that all of those folks on that board are there. Those were volunteer hours, a tremendous load of work being done by those folks. And so it's very fitting that they're honored first thing when you come into the building. So, as I said, Brandon Oaks originally, the original view was to have a HUD facility here. And when they changed their mind and went to a retirement community, it was better received. Folks had a better idea about it in the community, but there were still some concerns. And as a result of those concerns, there were some concessions that were made. One of those concessions was that the building can't rise over 3 stories high. I was on the 3rd floor the other day. I was invited to meet at just sort of the wagon wheel conversations in the afternoon, and one of the questions was, why can't we build up? And the reason we can't build up is because when we first built, it was put in there in writing, in stone, that we can't go up because of the concerns with the neighborhood community. Also, we had to jimmy around and move some of the cottages, and we had to reduce the total number of cottages that we could have. I think we originally planned 24, and we reduced them down to 18. One of the other things we had to do was we had to make a concession with regard to the heating and cooling. Every spring, I've already heard it today, every spring and every fall, our building system is more like an aircraft carrier, converting from heating to cooling. And everybody wants it to be a jet ski, to be able to turn around. And it just won't do it. It's a 2-pipe system. And they talked about it at that time. When it actually opened in 1993, the person giving the comment said, look, we had to make some concessions financially. We couldn't afford a 4-pipe system. And so as a result, folks are going to have to be patient in the spring and in the fall. And we've put these other things in to help mitigate it, particularly for the heat. But that's just what we had to do. So there were some concessions that had to be made and that were made at that time that are still affecting us today. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. So in 1991, Brandon Oaks was given the name, obviously for Brandon Avenue, and then for the vital and mature trees that are on the property. And they thought that made a nice combination. And ground was broken in 1991. The building opened in 1993. This is not accurate. This part here came later. This is the dining room currently. And so from here back is what was built. And it was open in April of 1993. Shockey was the main contractor and Lineberger was the sub on this. The cost for the building was $18.9 million. And as I said, it included the main building and included 18 cottages, nine buildings, 2 units per. Some of the early residents, as you all know, Peggy Ann Newman was an original. June Poe was an original. June was an original. Others that have been here a long time, Mary Dress, again, recently passed, but Mary was here a long time. Jackie Carmack's been here 27 out of the 30 years. And Milani Terry's been here 24 out of the 30 years. So we have a lot of folks that have some history here from the very beginning. So June, anything you know, please fill the gaps in my memory here, or my research. So in February, the first residents moved in. By May, the first resident council was formed. So resident council celebrating 30 years as well. And I don't know why this jumped out at me, but in October of '93, the Sauerkraut Band performed for Oktoberfest and entertained everybody with polka music. So I don't know if they hit it big or not, but that was a big deal for us at Brandon Oaks anyway, the Sauerkraut Band. So this is what, these are pictures from the construction. This is the dining hall. Note the porch. There was a porch on the dining hall at one time. Some of you may remember that. Wanda's shaking her head. She remembers. These are the cottages. This is a picture of A7 coming out. A7 door would be over here. And then again, this is the main entrance right here. So this is the Brandon Oaks under construction in 91, 92, and then opening in February of 93. Common space flashbacks. This is the auditorium now. Doesn't look too different from then. We have a raised platform back there now. It's different. This is the entryway or hall. There's the front desk right there. This is as if you were looking out of the bank. This is the dining room. I don't think we still have those swaggy curtains. This is where the library currently is. Virginia Lutheran Homes' corporate office was in this building when it opened, and so I'm assuming this was somebody's office there. This right here is the courtyard right there. I don't know what these are. I don't know if that's art or if it had some sort of canvas. Was it abstract art? It could be. It could have had some canvas on it to provide sunshade. I don't know. But that's no longer there. So that was the main building there. One of the things that was interesting about Brandon Oaks, because the nursing home was built first in '73, it was a little different retirement community, because when you come in off the street, the first thing you go to is the nursing center, and that's very unusual. It's not common in our business. Usually the nursing center is in the back. You usually come to the independent living first, and then you find the nursing center in the back. But Brandon Oaks, because of the way it was built, in a 20-year gap, the nursing center was first, and that was one of those things that marketing they had to overcome first. Brandon Oaks was not just for folks that needed nursing care. So in 1997, we purchased 3 acres for expansion and an easement so that we could get out onto Dyerly Avenue. And that ultimately became the Village Homes. So in '97, we purchased it, built them, and in 2003, the Village Homes opened. That cost was $4.2 million. Some of the long-standing residents there, Wanda, you were an original there, right? Wanda Miller, Dee Lloyd, I think she started in the villages. And then other long-standing folks, we have Lynn Miller. Georgine has been in the cottages for a long time. And Norma Jean Sigmund has been in there as well a long time. So '97, we purchased land down here, and then we ultimately opened the Village Homes in 2003. So the Village Homes, you're celebrating your 20th anniversary. In 2000, this is something that I don't fully understand, but in 2000, we obtained a license to provide assisted living services, but we only had 4 beds. And this was before we built the wing, so I don't really know where those 4 beds were, but we had a license for 4 assisted living beds in 2000, and that was a big deal. And then in 2003, we decided we were going to move the nursing home across the street. So we purchased across the street, made renovations over there, and that move cost us $3.7 million. And so then we tore down the nursing and rehab center that was right here where Dogwood and assisted living are. Does that make sense? So we tore that down, moved over there, and then we began plans for expansion here. So then expansion and plans began for Dogwood and for assisted living. Dogwood opened in 2007, assisted living in 2008, and they opened with 40 beds and 24 beds, 24 apartments in Dogwood. Some of the original Dogwoodians, is that what y'all call yourselves? Dogwoodians? No. Those from Dogwood, some of the original. Jane Rennick, Jane was here. Jane was an original move-in. Rachel McGimpsey, she's over in the NRC now. She was an original. Sarah Ann Purvis was an early one. And Betty Fisher was also one. Betty's no longer with us, but she was an original. Dogwood ended up costing $8.2 million, and assisted living cost us $7.9 million. Lineberger constructed both of those as well. In 2008 and 9, you saw the porch that was on the dining room. The porch got pushed out. We ended up coming out this way and adding the fitness, transportation, salon, grill. All that occurred in 2008 and 2009. I don't know who that is, Sam. Is Sam here? Sam Vance? There he is. There's Sam. Doing a nice job, Sam, working out. And you can't see the folks in the pool, but they're working hard as well. There's Betty Lovingood in the grill. So the grill opened in 2008 and 2009. Again, Lineberger helped us with that. That was a healthy project as well. Then in 2009, we made plans to remove some cottages and to build Pinecrest. We broke ground in 2010, and we opened Pinecrest in 2011. And that's 12 apartments or 12 units, and that cost was $5.2 million. Then in 2012, we combined the 4 cottages into 2 and created a very nice, unique footprint. If y'all have ever been in the Johnsons or the Van Heisses apartments, they're really, really nice. That was a major change with some small cottages. So those look very, very unique and very interesting as well. That was in 2012. Jim and Janet, are y'all the originals there? Yes. Okay, and I think the Van Heisses are as well, correct? That's right. In 2015, the John P. Fishwick Rehab Center opened, which is, here's the old nursing and rehab, and then here's the new building. That opened in 2015, had 26 private rooms for short-term rehab, has a beautiful state-of-the-art therapy gym downstairs, 4,500 square feet, and that was a tremendous addition to our community at that time. The cost was $8.9 million. Really nice job Lineberger did with that. 2016, Virginia Lutheran Homes added another company, which was Brandon Oaks at Home, to provide home care and home health services to the campus and the broader community. 2017, before I arrived, memory care over in assisted living on the first floor was dedicated. So we went from 40 assisted living to 28 assisted living and 12 memory care down on the bottom floor. That was 2017. 2017 also, we added Pine Ridge to the neighborhood. My understanding, the only differences are between Pine Ridge and Pinecrest are this space and this space. So I think those of you in Pinecrest told us what you would like to have, and it was put into Pine Ridge. So I'm sorry. So Other than these two rooms, the buildings are very, very similar. And you know more about this in 2021, right in the midst of all of the COVID, we opened the the Blue Ridge neighborhood on the upper floor of Fishwick. And that has 17 private rooms, its own dining space up there. Very nice space. When that building was built in 2015, it was roughed in. So it had plumbing. The plumbing wasn't there, but the holes through the concrete were there, and the places where you would put the bath and the shower and those things were already roughed in. So this went fairly well overall, even though it was in the midst of the pandemic. I don't know if y'all remember, but we started this in February of 2020, and March of 2020 the pandemic hit, and we stopped construction, and they really hadn't done anything. We stopped construction until they figured out that they could build a scaffold, and they tore out a window on the side of the building and made a door on the upper floor, and they walked up that scaffolding and went in from the outside and never came through our building. So we didn't provide a risk to them, and they didn't provide a risk to us, and they were able to do that during the pandemic. Very creative, and very important. So that opened in, I believe, December or January of, I think it opened in January of 2021. In the following year, we opened memory care. We expanded from the 12 that were down here to 26 across the street. And obviously, you know, the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, the programming over there is very impressive. And then the design, these multi-sensory pictures were designed specifically for memory care neighborhoods and things like that. So we put a lot of thought and effort into the design of the building specifically for memory care. That opened in 2022, and then the last piece, Appalachian neighborhood, the front neighborhood, that just opened in August, I believe, of last year, and we're very excited about that. That has 19 beds in it. So we added space, but we didn't add the total number of beds, or didn't add but one more total bed. But we created smaller neighborhoods, less institutional feeling of dining, more intimate dining, more private rooms. Almost everything is private. We have about six in Appalachian. We have 6 semi-privates there that we serve, and you'd be surprised. Some people actually want semi-private just to have a company. And so those folks are there. The total cost of the renovations to the NRC and to the memory care and to this, the Appalachian unit, the total cost of that was $13.5 million. And then we renovated downstairs and assisted living and converted it back to apartment style and opened that back up in February of 2022. That's pretty much what I have. I will welcome any thoughts or questions you might have at this time.
Was the nursing home across the street there before you purchased it, or did we build it?
Yes, it was. The question is, was the nursing home, when we moved over there in 2003, was the nursing home over there? It was, but it was just that one building. It was like a straight shot, and we built the back kind of that shape on the back of it, if that makes sense. And that's what we did. That's why it cost. Obviously, it cost to deconstruct what was built here, but we put some additional over there. And I think that building, from my understanding, Joe, that building was from the 1970s over there as well.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I saw some patients over
Yeah, it was not a young pup, so to speak, of a building. Yep.
A lot different now.
Whole lot different now. That's right. Yes, Vern.
Does each one of these moves and each one of these additions require a new certificate of need from the state?
Does each one of these moves or changes require a certificate of need from the state? The things on Brandon Oaks property, no, not a certificate of need. So we didn't change our license for any of the work done at the NRC because it's still 62. Well, take that back. We did have to change because we went from 12 to 26 and for memory care. And so when Shenandoah opened, before it opened, the state had to come through and it was like opening a new building for that because we did change that. We increased it from 12 to 26.
Has any of that been a problem, or is the state pretty much supportive of this?
The question was, has any of that been a problem? Anytime you deal with that kind of bureaucracy, it's not clean. And I'm not trying to offend those of you that have worked in bureaucracy. Not at all. But it's worked fine. It's worked fine. Good question. Yeah.
Are there future plans then?
Are there future plans? Well, I think you can see, one of the things you can see is that the dust has not settled much on Virginia Lutheran Homes. They've always been looking to grow and change and those kinds of things, and I think we're continuing to do that. My sense is that for 2023, it's more of a planning year. The board's going into a strategic planning year this year, and so I don't think we will be, it's obviously a board decision. I don't think we'll actually do anything in 2023 other than plan, but I know the board is looking to see what's next. Yes? Oh yeah, good question. The office across the building across the street. So when Virginia Lutheran Homes, Virginia Synod Lutheran Homes started, I don't know where the original office was. When Brandon Oaks opened over here in 93, that the Virginia Lutheran Homes office was here. It moved to Colonial Avenue across from North Cross School around 1997, and somewhere around 2002, it moved to Salem, out there, Sheridan Road, Salem. Does that make some of you Salemites? Is that right, Julie? Am I saying that right? So it was out there around 2002, and then in 2013, an opportunity came to purchase that building, and we bought that building. Virginia Lutheran Homes bought that building that's across there and moved over there in 2013. So Virginia Lutheran Homes has kind of been all around, but it's been here very close to Brandon Oaks since 2013. That's a great question. Yes, sir.
Can the office building across the street get an elevator?
Can it get an elevator across the street? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. At the moment, that office complex is about 54% occupied. Virginia Lutheran Homes owns a building. Other folks are managing it, but we own it. And iHeartRadio's over there, a couple law offices, but it does not have an elevator at this time. That's a good question. Yes, Janet. What changes have we had to make with regard to the food department to keep up with the changes? That's a good question, and I don't have a history of the food department at this time. That's a very good question. One of the things I did see, Janet, was that Sodexo's been here a really long time. And as our partner, I know that you all may have varying opinions about Sodexo, but one of the good things about having a partnership like that is that the changes that occur nationally and locally with regard to health codes and things like that. They're going to stay on top of those and make sure that we're compliant with those. But I know Sodexo's been with us for I think 20 years at least. There are minutes to the resident council in the community game room on where the TV is, just to the left of the TV. There are a bunch of old pictures and old binders there, and you can find minutes to the board. That's where I found the sauerkraut band and things like that. So it's a good place. Hayden, you had a question.
Is there adjacent land that we might be able to acquire while we landlocked?
Currently, the question is, are we landlocked, or is there adjacent land that we can acquire? I'm pretty sure, my understanding, the Elliots have that farm in a trust, so that's not going anywhere, it won't be developed. The church has been something we've worked with and talked about for a long time with them. Working with Utah is they've not been overly interested in selling. So we're pretty much landlocked on this side of the street. On the other side of the street, we're not sure. We're keeping our eyes open. But that's something that we keep our eyes and ears open for. I know at one time there was some, right down here at the corner of Peters Creek, some of that was up for sale, and some folks asked me, why don't we buy that? We did look at that, and it just wasn't big enough to provide us space to really get our arms around, to be able to do anything. I think because we invested a lot of money in the nursing and rehab center, $13.5 million, and that was a spend out of mission and not out of business, because the business, there's so much in the business now. Folks are getting out of the nursing, long-term care business, out of skilled business, but the environment over there was substandard, and we did not feel like that represented the quality that we wanted for our residents and the experience that they wanted. And so we invested in making that, even though that was not the business decision. It didn't add more revenue to our bottom line. It was what we felt like we needed to do. The next change that we have is going to probably need to add more beds and more heads on the bed, so to speak, to add to our bottom line. That's just me talking. Again, the board makes those decisions, Hayden, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yes, sir.
Has there ever been a dry cleaning concessionaire in here?
Good question. Has there ever been a dry cleaning or concessionaire here in the building? To my knowledge, no. I'm going to turn to June. June, has there ever been a dry cleaning here in the building? I'm not aware of any. June says no, but it's a good question. Other thoughts? Yeah, Vern.
In the long-range planning, do you have to increase the number of units in each of the areas, independent living, assisted living, NRC, at the same time because of the progression that the residents make?
Vern's question is, do we need to increase all levels of care at the same time, or is there a particular area that we would raise? I'm going to speak for myself and not for the board, and I know that's kind of risky, but from a business perspective, the independent living needs to increase, and we need to increase that probably before we change anything else in assisted living. When I came on in 2017, there were a tremendous amount. Folks weren't in ashes and sackcloth, but they were pretty frustrated that assisted living was so tight and you couldn't get in. There was a lot of worry about getting into assisted living at that time. And that's when the memory care had opened, and it had gone from 40 down to 28 apartments in assisted living. And it was tight for a while. And so changing and increasing the memory care beds, expanded back to 40, is good, and we feel like that's a good number for us in assisted living. We feel like we're good on the other side of the street with the nursing and rehab center and memory care. We just feel like, I just feel like the next move is probably going to be more independent living. But I could be wrong. Other thoughts or questions? Well, folks, thanks for the opportunity to come and share this history.
Before we let him go, I don't know what you're going to drink with this, but here's banana nut bread. Not nut, just banana bread for you and your wife.
Banana bread. That's better than the sauerkraut band, so thank you.
We normally give a coffee cup.
Thank you all very much.